Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Rich Woman Rising podcast. I'm your host, Eloise Tomkins, and I'm a money coach and psychologist and love helping women to heal their relationship with money through rewiring the nervous system. The nervous system is so powerful, and we underestimate just how important the nervous system is. So, you will hear me talk about this and our subconscious a lot because when we can help our nervous system feel safe, calm, regulated, and happy, essentially, then that actually allows us to do a lot of things that we want in our life and in our business and when it comes to making money. And today we are going to have a little bit of a chat through something that I think you might relate to, which is overthinking. I used to be a chronic overthinker. Like, I would overthink so much. And for a lot of my clients, and when I was in the throes of my overthinking, um, it would often be at nighttime. You'd go to bed and your brain would just think, 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 think. It would race. And I remember the way that, and this was like, I don't know, I don't even know how old I was, like maybe my early 20s. Uh, I'm trying to like think, I can't even remember. I would have a pad of post-it notes and a pen beside my bed, and I would literally wake up at random times throughout the night. I would have a thought and I'm like, oh my God, I need to remember this. And I would just write it on a sticky note. And I'd wake up in the morning and there'd be like just sticky notes plastered all over my bedside table. And sometimes they'd land on the floor because there were just that many of them. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that was actually a helpful strategy because one of the ways that, and I wasn't seeing a psychologist or anything at the time, like this was pre my knowledge of psychology and strategies to help that overthinking. But it actually was a helpful strategy because our brain worries that we're going to forget, which is why we try and hold on to those thoughts and we hold on to those thoughts. And so my way of trying not to forget them was to write them on sticky notes. So it ended up being a really helpful strategy and helped me ease my overthinking. And it's something that I kind of talk with my clients. Not so much the write it down on a sticky note at 3 a.m., but write it before bed, like spend 15 minutes, maybe not directly before bed, but maybe the hour before bed. Just write everything down for like 15 minutes, all of the shit that you're worried about, write it down. And then when your brain thinks about it again, you can go, oh, it's all good. I've got you written down. We're good. Could be really helpful. Anyway, I digress. I'm jumping into tools and techniques when, I want to talk to you about why we overthink. Like just thinking about this topic, I just think back to me back in the day, and overthinking is exhausting. Like it takes so much energy from you, which is weird in a way because it's just thoughts. But overthinking actually comes back to like our nervous system. The thing is, we think that it's a bit of a strategy. We think, oh, if I overthink everything and if I plan for all of the possible what if scenarios, then I'm keeping myself safe. I will be figuring out all the possible things that can go wrong and then I'll be prepared for them. I'll have a plan. The problem with that is we have a plan for all of these situations that don't happen and probably never going to happen. Like, I mean, think about all of your what if scenarios that you have ever thought of before. Have any of them ever happened? Sure, some of them might, but have all of them? And if you were to put a percentage on how many of those scenarios have actually happened out of 100%, how many of them have actually happened? Chances are not that many, or not to the worst case scenario that you had in your mind. We tell ourselves that when we think about things, we're just being responsible. And I get it. Like we think we're being responsible. We're like, oh, okay, well, I'm just thinking I'm being responsible. Actually, it is just keeping us stuck. We are avoiding actually getting shit done. Now, we're not doing that intentionally. Our brain is just hardwired to be thinking at that point in time because we're experiencing a lot of stress. There's a lot of cortisol floating through our body. And cortisol is telling us, oh, we're in danger. When we think we're in danger, we're going to try and figure out how to get out of danger. So overthinking is often this buildup of chronic stress, and it's a symptom, right? Like it's a symptom of chronic stress, and it's not helpful. And you know that, you already know that, right? But it feels like we're doing something. When we're thinking, we feel like we're doing something. We feel like we're moving in our business. We feel like we're taking action. We feel like, well, I'm thinking about my business 24/7. That must mean I am doing something. I am doing everything I can. Not quite, because you're not actually taking action. Thinking is not the same as taking action. And what actually can trigger us is like, I don't know, like the thought of taking action and then something going wrong. So, for example, what if I take that action? What if I launch this thing in my business and I lose money? Or maybe it's even the fear of success. And this is a huge one. And it's funny because I was working with my coach recently, and this was something that came up for me. And I love my coach. She's very somatic based, which is the mind-body connection. It very much helps me go inwards, which I love. I love working with that with her. And we found this feeling in I found this feeling in my body. And she was like, let's explore that, Ellie. And it came up that it was a fear of success. She's like, wow, okay, so you think that maybe you might not be able to handle success. And I was like, oh my God, it was like this light bulb went off in my mind because I didn't quite pinpoint that, which was really cool. To kind of have that understanding about myself. We can also have this fear of judgment, like, what are other people going to think? Or even fear of regret, like, what if I get things wrong? Like, we can have so many different fears. And all of those, what ifs, we then play them out and almost catastrophize in our mind, like go to that worst case scenario. And then it makes us not take action. We don't take any action because our stress response goes up even higher. And all of a sudden, instead of taking action, boop, we're stuck. So overthinking is a pain. And the reason why this happens, or the science behind why this happens, is because, and you would have heard me say this before because I've said this quite a number of times, is your subconscious, your nervous system literally doesn't care if you make money. It doesn't care. All it wants to do is keep you alive and protect you and make sure that you're safe. Your logic brain says, well, making money is going to help me have a better life. It's going to help me have a really pleasurable experience on this earth. Yeah, your nervous system doesn't care. Because if making money to your nervous system feels like a threat, for example, if your nervous system feels like having success feels like it's going to add more pressure or more responsibility, or I had, gosh, who was I talking to? There was someone that I was talking to recently, and they were telling me that if they were to make more money in their business, then that could cause issues with their partner because their partner would feel threatened. And so they felt really apprehensive about becoming the breadwinner because they didn't want to have conflict in their relationship, because that might mean things in their relationship would change. All of these things activate our nervous system, and our nervous system goes, am I safe right now? And then we try and make sense of it. Like our subconscious tries to make sense of it. And if we're not feeling safe, then we're not going to take action. It'll pull us back into whatever mode that our nervous system goes to try and keep us safe, which is why you'll find yourself doing things like procrastinating on tasks. You might find that you sit down at your computer and you say, oh, I'm just going to check out what my competitor is doing. I wonder if she's posted anything today. You open up your phone, you go scrolly, and then all of a sudden 2 hours have passed and you're like, oh, well, now it's too late to write my sales page. Oops. Or you just avoid it completely. You don't even jump on the computer. You're like, no, not going to do it. And avoidance is different from taking a break and taking rest. Rest is healthy. Avoidance, because you're trying to stop a feeling, is not. Or it can also be perfectionism, like where everything has to be perfect and therefore you don't take action. And this was one of my clients who was just so hell-bent on making sure that everything was perfect that she didn't do anything. The fact that she had a really successful business was mind-blowing because she was such a perfectionist. The thing is, though, these strategies work up to a point, and then once you hit that point, they stop working. And that's where I think the frustration hits for a lot of us, because they've worked up until a point and we're like, well, why are they not working anymore? Like, it was working for me. Now it stopped. Make it work again. And that's why people come to see me a lot of the time, because they're like, but it was working and now it's not. Why? And that is because you've reached that upper ceiling. Like, your strategies work up, and like, in terms of, when I say strategies, I'm not talking business strategies or coaching strategies. I'm talking nervous system strategies or coping mechanisms that your nervous system has developed over the years. And those nervous system responses are typically the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn responses. Now, you've probably heard of fight, flight. So fight is, I don't know, kind of like overworking, pushing yourself really, really hard, trying to prove yourself, and finding it hard to receive. Like, you really feel like you need to just push in your business, hustle. The flight response is kind of constantly looking for that next solution, that next quick fix, the next shiny marketing strategy. You'll often see this with people bouncing around from, oh, well, Instagram ads aren't working. Okay, well, let me try this new marketing coach who specializes in SEO optimization, or that didn't work. Okay, well, now I'm going to try putting videos on my website and see how that goes. It's like, well, hang on a minute. Let's, what would happen if we just mastered one of those? They find that really overwhelming because their flight response is in action. The freeze response is feeling paralyzed when you're making financial decisions. It's kind of like hands up in the air, kind of this helpless state, like, oh, I don't even know what to do. And I see this with women who will often delegate finances to their partner, particularly men, and say, well, I'm just bad with money, I'm going to give it to them, because they don't like thinking about money. They don't like talking about it. They'll delegate. And the fawn response, I kind of describe this as people pleasing in a nutshell, because we have learned, particularly as women who are socialized as women from a young age, we're taught that our needs aren't important. And so what happens in those moments is we learn that it's more important to get the approval of other people. And so we do that in our business. And this is where we'll see things like, I use this example quite a lot, where you quote somebody for 3 hours worth of work, and then you start doing the work and you're like, oh gosh, this is going to take so much longer. It's going to take at least double the amount of time I've quoted. Instead of going back to that person and saying, hey, actually, now that I've looked at it, it's going to be double the amount. Let's renegotiate. They'll just do the work. But it's not just for one client. It'll be something consistent that happens. So over delivering for clients and undercharging is often a big one here. So you might be listening to that and thinking you identify with one of the fight, flight, freeze, fawn responses, or maybe you identify that there are different responses that you'll have in different moments. That's like me. I certainly have elements of those different responses myself. And not so much the people pleasing, not so much the fawn response, because that's one that I've helped my nervous system work through. I think for me, I can fluctuate between now the fight flight response, but I'm aware of it. And so building awareness of when these are playing out for you can help, because when you start to notice not just the overthinking as the symptom, but you starting to notice what else is going on in your body and how you're responding to other people, you can start to recognize, my nervous system's not in a place of calm right now, which probably means I'm not making decisions from a place of alignment. I'm probably making them from a place of fear. And so it's a really powerful way to be able to start making shifts. Speaking of how to make shifts, how do we actually break the overcycle? Oh my gosh, I can't word today. I'm drinking a coffee as I'm recording, and clearly I haven't drunk all the coffee yet. How do we break that overthinking cycle? Because overthinking, I also want to explain like why overthinking is so exhausting for you, which I found really interesting when I learnt about this. Like the reason that we get so tired when we're overthinking isn't because of the amount of thoughts that we're having. Like we just have a lot of thoughts every single day, like around 6,000 thoughts a day, which is wild when you think about it. Like that's a lot of thoughts, and most of them we're not even aware of, but that's beside the point. The reason that we get so exhausted is because the reason that we're overthinking is because we're feeling anxiety, we're feeling anxious. And when we're feeling anxious, we have more cortisol in our body. Cortisol is the stress hormone. And when that floats around in our body and we have high levels of cortisol, that is telling our body that we need to prepare for danger. We need to prepare to move quickly, to get out of the way so that we can survive. And when we have high levels of that cortisol, and then it starts to come down, the cortisol kind of moves out of our body, we get really fatigued because our body isn't designed to have that high level of stress and cortisol in our body. It's designed for short bursts, but not to have it there for a long time. So that's why we are so tired when we overthink and we've got all of that cortisol floating around. So I hope you find that interesting. I found that really interesting when I discovered that, and I wanted to share that with you. But 3 ways that we can break that overthinking cycle, aside from post-it notes. Actually, that's a good one. So I'll go back and share that. One of the ways that we can start with the overthinking is like I was saying before, like our brain wants to hold on to thoughts because if it holds on to thoughts and it thinks it's protecting us from perceived danger, even though logically we know that we don't need to fear success. We do, or our subconscious does. Writing it down. I love helping my clients with this, and we talk through like, okay, well, have some time before bed. Again, maybe not right before bed, but time before bed where you just sit and you give yourself permission to write down all of the worries that are in your head, no matter how big or how small they are. It might be, I'm worried that there's a speck of dirt on my table. Write it down. Doesn't matter. To something like, I'm worried that we're going to go bankrupt, even though there's absolutely no reason that we're going to go bankrupt. I'm worried about it and I can't get that thought out of my head. Write it down. Because when you write it down and you have that thought again 10 minutes later, you can tell your brain, okay, cool, thank you for letting me know that thought's really important. I've written it down. I'm not going to forget about you. And we're not judging these thoughts. We're not saying to ourselves, okay, just because I've written it down means that it's going to come true or whatever. It's literally just giving space for that thought to be somewhere so that our brain that's trying to protect us, our nervous system trying to protect us, knows that we've got it written down somewhere. Other ways that we can start to shift the overthinking, and particularly if we struggle with decisions, because sometimes overthinking can be associated with, my gosh, it is so hard to make a decision. I used to struggle with that so much. I'm like, oh my gosh, do I pick a pink or do I pick a green? Pink or green, pink or green. And I would like look at my friends anxiously, like, oh my God, do I pick pink or green, pink or green? And it was like a gumball. Who cares? It's going to go in my mouth. I'm going to chew it anyway. And it will turn into some like yucky gray color. Who cares? But making that decision, my overthinking brain couldn't decide. It was like, oh. So sometimes we can help our brain with the overthinking and the decision making by putting yourself into, or not putting yourself, but in these low stake decision making situations, for example. So if you are like the gumball, pink or green, making a decision and giving yourself that permission to say, okay, I'm going to make a decision in 15 seconds. Or If that doesn't feel good for your nervous system, if that feels like, oh, say 2 minutes, I'm going to give myself 2 minutes. I'm going to decide what I want on the menu at the cafe. And I'm going to give myself 2 minutes to look at the menu. And if you need to, set a timer and just start noticing how it feels in your nervous system when you start making those small decisions and that the world doesn't collapse. All of the things that you're worried about. And sometimes they might, like for that example with the cafe, you know, how you have food envy sometimes, maybe that'll happen too. It'll also start to teach your nervous system that you can handle and tolerate the frustration or disappointment that comes with those decisions rather than trying to make those decisions in your business when you're trying to make a decision whether you increase your $2,500 package up to $3,500, for example. Like that's going to activate your nervous system more. So start small. Start small. This is something that I work with all my clients is start small. And if you think it's small, go even smaller. um, that's actually something I seriously work with my clients. They'll come to me and they'll want to set a goal and they'll try and set a goal that's a wonderful goal. Like they've got a great goal. But often we're very overly optimistic. And that is, anyway, I'm going down a garden path here. So I'm going to come back to overthinking. Also, the other way that we can sort of shift out from overthinking is by creating safety for us to expand. And so it's kind of what I was saying before around like starting small. So instead of creating situations where you want to make a huge decision or a huge financial move, make smaller decisions that stretch you. So for example, you might, with the prices, if you want to go from 2,500 to 3,500, that might feel like too much of a stretch for your nervous system. So it might be, okay, let's start at 2,500. I'm going to increase my rates by $100 or $500, whatever feels okay for your nervous system. Or if you want to, like maybe you're making multiple six figures in your business and you've never made that kind of money before. And so you're still shopping at Kmart and you can afford to go shopping at, I don't know, I was going to like think about designer clothing stores and I'm like, oh, I don't do designer brands. So what would be, I don't know, like you want to go to, just a designer store. You want to go to a designer store, but you can't even fathom walking into the shop, for example, because you worry that they'll see right through you and they'll be like, oh, you don't have money. So it might just be that you stand in front of the door or you stand near the shop, or maybe you walk into the shop, but you don't buy anything. So just start stretching your nervous system. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can start to stretch in these little ways. Because when we think about overthinking, it's really not us trying to get more information. Like you already have all of the information. You're smart, you're capable, you know what you're doing. It's overthinking isn't actually trying to get more. And I think sometimes we think, well, if I overthink, then I'm collecting all this information and I'm going to be able to make this very rational, well thought out decision. Cool. I know people who have overthought on a decision about whether or not to buy a $200 item for 6 months. 6 months, $200 and multiple six figures. Like they're doing well in their business. So overthinking can be a real massive problem. And the reason is it's your nervous system protecting you from that perceived financial risk. But the way to move past that is by one, understanding that it's your nervous system response protecting you. And two, building trust with yourself to make decisions through small, intentional money decisions. So what I want to leave you with are a couple of things to reflect on, which is thinking about a financial decision in your business that you may have found yourself overthinking on. And what is one small step that you can take today. Now, when I say small step, I want you to go even smaller than the step that you've just thought of. Take it even smaller. Break it down into like the microest of micro steps and take that. I could give so many examples, but otherwise I'll be here for hours giving examples. But I mean, I work with people all the time on overthinking, and I cannot stress the importance of just really breaking it down and giving yourself grace, right? Like your nervous system is doing its job. There's nothing wrong with you. I know it's annoying. I know overthinking is a pain in the ass, and you'd probably like to not be overthinking. But at the same time, your nervous system is doing its job. So pat on the back to your nervous system. Thank you very much. And let's help to calm that nervous system down. Now, if you are ready to start feeling calmer and more confident around money, I'm really excited because I'm going to be dropping something in the next couple of weeks that is really going to help you to begin shifting your nervous system response to money. And I've been working hard on this new offer, and I can't wait for you to experience it. It's not quite ready yet, so I'm not going to share more details just yet. So stay tuned. People on my mailing list will be the first people to be notified. They will also get a really cool discount. So if you are not on my mailing list, I would encourage you to go and join the mailing list. You can do that in the show notes. I'll pop a link so that you can join and get access to the program when it lands. And I can't wait to chat with you all again next week on the next episode of Rich Woman Rising. Until then, have fun making money in your biz. All right, bye.